Hello friends, my name is Shivam from DevOps Schools and I will help you to enable your learning process in various technologies of DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and many more. This is our initiative to help you by sharing multiple tutorials and videos. And if you want any specific tutorials or any particular topic, then please do comment in the below comment section and I will help you with it. Also, please subscribe to our premium services on YouTube, which will give you access to more content and videos to enhance your knowledge about all these topics. Also, if you want me to help you with regards to the online trainings and classroom sessions by our qualified trainers, then please do write me at contact@devopsschool.com. Thank you.
So many of you may be aware about cloud computing as a concept, but many of you, since you are from different backgrounds, many of you may not be aware about the fundamentals of cloud. So we'll just discuss first, before diving into AWS, general concepts about cloud computing, and this will be the agenda. So we will find out what is the official definition of cloud, what are the different attributes of cloud, little bit on history of cloud, what is the technology that is used in cloud, what are advantages and disadvantages of cloud, uh, application to business, why businesses are more and more adopting cloud, who are the main service providers in cloud, cloud computing terminologies and architecture. Those who are not speaking, please go on mute. Yeah, thank you. So what is the definition of cloud? So cloud computing is a model for enabling convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, that is network, server, storage, applications and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. So that is a big definition. What essentially it is talking about, you get on-demand services from a cloud provider, right? But what is important here is the last statement, that those services can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. So when you apply this to public cloud, for example, Amazon or Azure or Google Cloud, these are public clouds. So how we use it, we just create an account and go to the console, and we can create these resources on our own. We can use them, and whenever they are not required, we can just terminate them. Right. So for all these activities, we never call AWS or we never take their support for creating or terminating resources. Right. So that is what this statement means: the minimal management effort or service provider interaction. So there is a little difference between a cloud provider and a hosting provider. Hosting provider usually will not give you a self-support kind of a portal. So usually the hosting provider, the modus operandi is you need to call a hosting provider, and then he will provision the required hardware or infra for you and give you remote access. Right? So in case of cloud, uh, here I'm referring to public clouds. There is minimal management effort or service provider interaction. If you face any issues regarding these resources which you have provisioned in different data centers, then you may call AWS or Google or Microsoft for their support. And there are various levels of support they provide. Okay, so that is a cloud definition of cloud. Now, this cloud model promotes availability and is composed of 5 essential characteristics and 3 service models and 4 deployment models. So we'll go through each one of these. So which are the 5 essential characteristics? First and foremost, very important, is on-demand self-service. So when suppose you are setting up a public cloud, then first thing you should satisfy is on-demand self-service. That is very much in the definition of cloud, right? Second is broad network access. So all these resources are getting accessed over internet. So as a cloud provider, you should have a very good bandwidth, right, at your end, so that there are millions of customers who are going to access these resources over internet, right? Third is resource pooling. So what is resource pooling? When we talk about, say, AWS in particular, now AWS global infrastructure is divided into what are called as regions. And regions, so we'll go into those details at later point of time. But the global infrastructure is divided into different regions, and regions are further divided into what are called availability zones. But for example, I have a login. I have created a account on AWS, and I go to AWS console and I log in. And there is no restriction for me so that I can go to any region and create a resource. There, I could create a resource in North Virginia region, Ohio region, or Mumbai region, right? So when we refer to resource pooling, what does it mean? So basically, suppose I'm logging in from India and I'm trying to create a resource in Mumbai region, but unfortunately, suppose the infrastructure capacity is full in Mumbai region, then I am not restricted to go to any other region and create a resource, right? So I can pool these resources from anywhere across the regions. Of course, the regions, there are latency issues and all this. So we'll deal with those after some time. But fundamentally, resource pooling is there is no restriction on a user to go to any region and provision the resource, right? Uh, Fourth is rapid elasticity and measured service. So when we talk about cloud, we always talk about uh, the elasticity and measured service. Measured service means basically pay as you go, right? When we refer to rapid elasticity or elasticity, usually we refer to horizontal scaling. Now there are two types of scaling which are possible in IT. One is called vertical scaling and other is called horizontal scaling. Now what is vertical scaling? Suppose I have a database server, a traditional, say, Oracle or MySQL server, and I'm facing some issues of, but there are some performance issues. And now, after analysis, I find out that the CPU and memory utilization is very, very high, and I need to upgrade them. So in this case, I put more CPU and more memory. So that is called in the same server, right? So the number of servers is one, and I'm just vertically upgrading it. So maybe instead of 8 CPUs, I make it 16 CPUs or any higher number of CPUs. So that is called vertical scaling. Another type of scaling is called horizontal scaling. So how does it apply here? Horizontal scaling means suppose there are, say, 5 web servers currently operational, and now the users start complaining about the pages are getting timed out, or basically the number of HTTP servers are unable to handle the load. So what I'm going to do, instead of 5, I will be putting 10 web servers, right? But the configuration of each of these web servers is same, right? So what is the peculiarity of horizontal scaling? The number of servers will vary, but the configuration of each server will remain same, right? So that is a peculiarity of horizontal scaling. Now, which type of scaling you can do it on? Which type of scaling is possible on cloud? Well, both the scalings are possible on cloud. You can do vertical scaling, you can do horizontal scaling, but which is the most suited one for the applications to be migrated to cloud? It is horizontal scaling. Why? There are two reasons. One is the process is seamless, right? And so you can automate this task, or the task of horizontal scaling can be automated. Okay. Second is there is no downtime. So when the load increases, it will increase the number of servers, and it will take care of the load. When the load decreases, it will terminate some of those servers. Right? So it is a fairly automated process, which is not the case with vertical scaling. So in the vertical scaling, what will happen is you will have a downtime. So either it could be of some seconds or minutes, but the server has to restart and come up with new configuration, right? So usually when we refer to elasticity in the with reference to cloud, we usually talk about horizontal scale, right? So this is an important characteristic of cloud, rapid elasticity. That is why all the business houses are moving to cloud, right? And the last point is uh, measured service. So measured service is basically pay as you go, right? So whatever services you use, you only pay for that. Okay? Nothing extra. Okay, so these are the 5 essential characteristics of a cloud. Any questions on this? Vertical scaling, horizontal scaling.
Like horizontal scaling is done by the auto scaling group, right? Or
Yeah,
we can do vertical and horizontal both by using ASG.
ASG is horizontal scaling.
Scaling, is there any automated process?
Yeah, auto scaling group is an automated process only. So
So
depending
is
upon the
that for
load,
vertical or both, or only is for horizontal?
vertical is not possible in auto scaling group. Okay. So vertical you will have to manually change the size of the server, and then it will take one stop to start cycle, and then it will do. Okay.
Come again?
No, vertical scaling cannot be done through auto scaling group. You are referring to auto scaling group, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So vertical is not possible. Horizontal, it is possible.
So then vertical scaling is done by the, is it manual process?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So history of cloud. Uh, Now, when you refer to Gartner quadrants currently, Gartner is a company who publishes the lot of reports. So according to Gartner charts, currently Amazon and Azure, they are in the leading quadrant, followed by other clouds like IBM and Google, etc. Right. So basically, Amazon, as you know, is an e-commerce company, and now suddenly they have come into technology business. So how it happened was actually way back in 2000, I think 2002 timeframe, there was a big slowdown in the US economy, and what Amazon started doing was renting out some of the e-commerce applications to third parties to run their business. That is how it all started, and eventually they started a different offering which is called Amazon Web Services. So that was officially announced in 2006. Now so year on year, they keep on adding new services to their domain. And so when we look at the AWS console, you will notice that there are many services which are available in AWS. I think possibly the highest number of services across clouds. Right. So that is about Amazon. Microsoft Azure, as you know, Microsoft initially was into the product business, and then they eventually came into the cloud business because seeing the need at the various enterprises. So Microsoft Azure is also very popular cloud. Third is the Google Cloud. So Google Cloud, we actually use day in day out at the back end, but for Google Maps or Google Apps like that. But so it's transparent to us, why I can say. So, but there are many enterprises who have standardized on Google Cloud as well, as using the infra cloud infrastructure services of Google Cloud. Then there is another peculiar name, which is Rackspace. So Rackspace is a public cloud, and they give a service called cloud in a cloud. So what does that mean? Suppose Fidelity decides that they want to build their own cloud, and they decide on some stack, maybe OpenStack or VMware stack, and they want to implement their own cloud. So what you can do, you can approach Rackspace. They will create a cloud for you in their own data center and give you remote access, right? So that is a peculiar service that is given by Rackspace. Then Salesforce falls into SaaS category, software as a service. So they deal with the CRM application, Salesforce CRM application, and that is also very, very popular cloud. These are so all these clouds like Amazon, Azure, Google Cloud, Rackspace, Salesforce. These are public clouds. That means the services are already available. You need to create an account and start using these services, right? I have written two names here. One is OpenStack and other is the VMware vCloud. So what are these? So don't confuse these with these service providers. These are basically the softwares or set of softwares which can be used to create your own cloud. So many of you may be knowing OpenStack. So there is a site called openstack.org, and there are different modules which are actually called as projects in terms of OpenStack language, and you can download those components and set up your own cloud. Okay? So that is OpenStack. Another one is VMware vCloud. So VMware is basically a company which is a leader currently in virtualization. They have a product called VMware vCloud. So with the help of that, you can set up your own cloud. Okay? So these are the two products. So please don't confuse these two names with other names. I have mentioned them here just to understand how you can set up your own cloud and what are the products used. Okay. Yeah, any questions on this? Fine. So cloud, so we have seen the essential characteristics of a cloud and how it is used, by enterprises are opting for cloud. I mean, why they are migrating their applications to cloud because of elasticity and pay as you go. These are the main reasons. Now, what are the different service models in a cloud? So we'll start with the bottom, that is cloud infrastructure as a service. So here we get processing power, storage, network capacity, and other fundamental computing resources on a rental basis. So the billing models could be different. It could be per hour billing model, per month, or maybe you can sign long-term contracts. But essentially what you get is a infrastructure as a service. Now, which clouds fall into this category? AWS, Rackspace, Microsoft Azure, Google, IBM, they also fall onto this category. Now, the service provider can fall into multiple categories also, right? So, for example, Microsoft Azure can fall into PaaS category. So, we are not discussed PaaS yet, but the point I'm trying to make is particular service provider can fall into multiple categories. Let us move up the ladder, and the next one is the PaaS. So it is a platform as a service. So let us take an example. Suppose you want to develop a .NET application in-house. suppose Fidelity wants to develop a .NET application in-house. So what are the requirements? First of all, you will need a server. Then you will need maybe Windows OS to run on that, because .NET is some part of it is currently supported on Linux, but mainly it is on Windows. So we'll need some version of Windows, and then you need a development environment, which could be Visual Studio, and you buy that, and your developers can start developing an application on that platform. So what PaaS gives you, platform as a service, if you go to Azure or any other platform, what they give you is a complete development environment. So the underlying layers, for example, the infra or the hardware in the operating system, is all taken care by the cloud provider. So you need not have to worry about the nitty-gritties of managing the hardware and operating system, etc. So that is what is meant by PaaS. So as you move up the ladder, the lower layers, they are not managed by you. So they are managed by the cloud provider. Okay. So that is essentially the platform as a service. Then the next is the SaaS, software as a service. So here the very simple example of SaaS is say Gmail. So how do we use Gmail? We just create an account and start sending and receiving mails. We never bother about on what hardware platform the Gmail is working or what kind of OS it is working. It is all taken care at the background by Google for you, right? So that is what I said. As you move up the ladder, the lower layers, they are not visible to you. So those are managed by the cloud provider. Okay. So Salesforce, for example, Salesforce is they give you CRM service, customer relationship management application service. So to run that, there are a lot of underlying layers. For example, hardware, operating system, and then some kind of database. But these are all managed by Salesforce for you. You will not have to bother. So you just you concentrate on developing your application, the CRM application. Okay. Yeah. Any questions on this? Okay. So there is a question about Terraform cloud service. No. Terraform is completely different. It is basically Terraform is a tool to create templates. So there is a concept of infra as a code. So we'll deal with that when the topic will come. We'll discuss more about it. So don't confuse this with these service models. This question was from Durai Swami. Okay. Any other question? Fine. Okay. So what are the cloud advantages? Cloud's advantages are it is less expensive. Now, so this may not be always true that cloud is less expensive. So let me explain that. But why still people prefer cloud is because of there is no upfront capex cost. Okay. So when you want to set up your application in-house, then first thing what you need to do is procure the server and procure the required components for it. So there is an upfront capex cost that is involved. Okay, and now suppose you want to run this application for 5 years, then maybe setting it up in-house may be cheaper. But the main disadvantage here is you are spending the money upfront. Okay, so in case of cloud, what happens is you you basically rent it out, right? So it's a pay as you go model. So you need not have to buy everything upfront. Another advantage here is scalable and elastic, which is not possible in in-house kind of setup. Because suppose the server capacity what you have provisioned is less as their number of users are increasing, then what will happen? Uh, then you are stuck with the server what you have sized. But in case of cloud, that is not the limitation. You can always increase the capacity of a particular infra, right? So these are the advantages. What are the disadvantages? Now, security. Everybody is worried about the security of data, because ultimately on public cloud, your data is going to reside in somebody else's data center, right? So, yeah, I mean, the customer has to accept this. Now, there are various mechanisms in place in across clouds where the data at rest and in transit is secured, right? So, but yes, from security point of view, the data still resides in the cloud providers data center. Another thing is data transfer charges are additional. So what are these? Now, in case of AWS, there are different regions, I said, and so there is a question: what about Pivotal Cloud Foundry? Does it fall into any of these categories? No, no. Pivotal Cloud Foundry is different. It doesn't fall into, these are basic categories of the cloud service models. What you're talking about are different tools. Okay, so Foundry will actually create multiple infrastructures, and you can push applications, all those things. So what we are talking about here is the basic cloud service models. Okay, fine. Yeah, so little bit of yeah. Coming back to the disadvantages, data transfer charges are additional. So what I was referring to was there are different regions in AWS, and when the traffic uh, flows from one region to another region, there is a separate charge. Okay, so from the pricing perspective, this is little disadvantage. Migration from one public cloud to another is a challenge. I'm not saying it is not possible, but there are certain challenges. Suppose today I set up all my infra on AWS, and now Microsoft Azure gives me a better deal, and I want to migrate everything to Azure. So there are a lot of tools currently available to migrate this, but still there will be some issues because the basic technology used in both these clouds is little different. That the hypervisor layer, etc. Okay, so there will be some. It will be a little bit of a challenge. It's not a seamless process. Okay. So what are the benefits of cloud to business? No upfront capex cost. You can start with small setup to service the consumers. Elastic growth, that is, and pay as you go, and provisioning of hardware and applications on the fly. So within no time, you can provision this infrastructure and applications in cloud. So that is a great advantage, and there is no upfront capex cost. Suppose, and so these are, you can be any normal user on AWS or Azure. The whole services are available to you, right? To anybody who creates an account, right? So that is a great advantage of using the cloud.
To get our channel membership, click onto the join button, select the 399 plan and grow your skills immensely.
So typical use case here is e-commerce business. So why it will prefer cloud? Let us see. Business wants to sell services and products on the web. Business does not have an idea about year-on-year growth. So I'm a small company. So today there are some number of customers are there, and uh, I don't know whether they will grow or they will shrink. So in this case, I will not waste my money and buy the hardware upfront. So I will go in a slow process. I will procure some servers on cloud, and then as my users grow, I will increase those servers. If the number of users decrease, then I can terminate some of the servers and save on cost, right? So investor doesn't want to invest upfront, needs IT infrastructure and applications to be dynamic and should be able to handle the load, right? The setup should provide redundancy. This should be able to provision applications near the users across countries. So this is what we are talking about is referring to different regions in case of AWS. So suppose you have some users in USA, some users in Asia. So accordingly, you can host your applications near to the users. Okay. And will pay only for the services used. So it's a pay per, pay as you go model. Yeah. Yeah. Any questions? So it's a typical use case where you can, use cloud services. Fine. So cloud and virtualization. Now, is virtualization a cloud? So many people, they get confused. They say cloud is nothing but virtualization. The question is, can you build a cloud without virtualization? Answer is yes, you can. You can build. So there are certain cloud providers. They will give you bare metal servers. Bare metal servers are those on which there is no hypervisor installed. So there are certain cloud providers. So that means that uh, virtualization is uh, is is not necessary to build a cloud, but most of the time you will see that virtualization is used in building the cloud. Why? Because there are many advantages. So virtualization has become the fundamental building block of cloud, and there are priced and open source products in the market. So some of them are priced, that is, you need to pay the license fee for that product used. For example, VMware uh, ESXi is the product which is a price product, which is not an open source product. But there are certain open source products. For example, Xen, XEN is a open source product. It works on Linux platform, and that is free. You can download it and use it. So public cloud providers customize either open source products or price products to suit their needs. So for example, AWS is using Xen. It is a modified Xen. So what they have done is they have taken Xen and they have recoded it, customized it to their own needs to build their own cloud. Similarly, there is a cloud called DigitalOcean, and it uses so it uses different kind of virtualization technology. So that technology is called KVM. Okay, so there are various clouds, they use different virtualization techniques. So this is a typical diagram of how the virtualization is implemented. So here there is a hardware layer. You have a so this is of type native. So native means basically this hypervisor layer is very thin layer on top of hardware, and this enables you to create what are called as virtual machines. And these virtual machines will have their own guest operating system running on it. So there are, suppose this hardware is there and it is x86 or certain type of hardware, and this is a hypervisor, and there is a VM created, and these VMs can run guest operating systems, mainly Windows and Linux flavors. Okay, or there could be also Solaris with a x86 support that also can be run on some of the VMs. Okay, so this is how the hypervisor native kind of virtualization setup looks like. And there are various examples here: Microsoft Hyper-V, VMware ESXi, Citrix, Amazon EC2. EC2 is a service with the help of which we can create these VMs on top of a hypervisor. So this hypervisor used in Amazon is called Zen. So it is from open source Zen, and they have modified it. Okay. So this is one type of virtualization. There is another type which is called hosted type. So here what happens is there is a hardware layer, there is a complete host operating system sitting on top of that, and then there is a hypervisor. So hypervisor will work as a application, one of the applications on host operating system, and then you can create your own VMs. So you might have used this like VMware Workstation is of this type, or VirtualBox from Oracle that is of this type. So you can just download it on your laptop. Suppose this host operating system is Windows system, you can download this hypervisor, and using this VirtualBox hypervisor you can create virtual machines. Okay, so these are the two types. Now there is another concept called as containers. So we will little bit talk about that when we discuss about certain services in AWS. Okay, so that doesn't use the hypervisor per se. So there is only one operating system, one kernel, and you can create many containers, or basically the Dockers on top of that. So we will deal with that when we'll cover some services in AWS. Okay. So summary: most of the clouds will implement some kind of virtualization, because there are a lot of advantages in implementing virtualization. So what are the advantages? Improved utilization of hardware resources, reduce management costs, and easier administration. Because essentially what happens is your virtual machine is nothing but a memory state and a set of files. So suppose one of the virtual machine crashes, then what you can do, you can take that image and run it on another server. So that reduces lot of management costs, and administration is very, very easy. Improved flexibility, reduction in downtime, migration becomes very easy. Elimination of compatibility issues. So compatibility issues in terms of the various hardwares. Something is not working on a particular hardware, then in case of that, you can implement a hypervisor, and those issues can be taken care of. Rapid deployment. We are talking about the templatization. So you can create a template, and with the help of those templates, the deployment can be very, very fast. Okay. So these are the advantages of using virtualization. That is why most of the clouds, you will see they implement some kind of virtualization underneath. Okay. Yeah, any questions on these slides? Okay.
Whatever we are doing that, like, I'm just installing, I'm downloading just VMware, and I'm hosting one Linux machine there. That is comes under the hosted virtualization, right?
No, come again. Your voice is.
So no, actually, if I want like mine is Windows machine, so
Okay.
it's not for enterprise level. I'm just talking about my own. So
Okay.
if I want any Linux machine, at that time I will download our VirtualBox or VMware, and I will run
Correct.
that, and I will take ISO and I will install there. So is it
Right.
come under hosted or it's normal?
On laptop, when you use VirtualBox, it is called hosted. So, for example, my laptop is there. It is running Windows. Windows, I think, yeah, Windows version. And then what I have here is Oracle VirtualBox, which is a application which I have downloaded. So if I invoke that, it will give me a facility to create virtual machines. So this setup is called hosted setup. But in your data centers, what you usually use VMware ESXi. Okay, so that is that other type. It is not a hosted type. Okay? So hosted type will give you certain. So this native will give you certain advantages in terms of performance, because this hypervisor layer is very thin layer, which is not the case here. Here the whole operating system is there, right? So the performance, this will be little bit degraded compared to the native one.
So when we are doing this, just we are enabling hypervisioning in our laptop, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, but they're installing that gen or something, right? So you
Yeah.
show
So
them that open type too.
right. So in case of this one, Amazon, what they're doing is this layer, the native one. So they are using native one. So here the hypervisor will be Zen. It is a modified Zen, and then they will give you this virtual machines.
Like, is it chargeable? Gen is it's enterprise level or what?
What is chargeable?
No,
Come
is
again?
it like Gen is the one software, right? Hypervisor, one hypervisor, right? So should we need to take license for that or what?
No, Zen is open source tool. You can
Okay.
download it. You can download the source code, compile it, and
So
use it.
if I want to use this native, so can we use that in our laptop?
Yeah, you can. You can use it.
Okay.
Yeah, just like your virtual box is free, Zen is also free. The native Zen is free.
So like it's same like a virtual box, right? Gen is same like a virtual box.
No, it is not. It is not similar to virtual box.
Okay.
It is little different. So the configuration wise, it will be little different.
Can you
But
show
the
that one?
functionality, what?
Gen.
Zen is a module you'll have to install. I think if time permits, I'll show you. But it is not as easy as installing a go to virtualbox.com and install it. So there is a separate process for installing Zen. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Fine. Yeah. Any other question? Okay. So we have seen the service models, and now we will see what are the different deployment models. So deployment models, we have a private cloud. So this is basically enterprise owned or leased. So suppose Fidelity uh, sets up their own cloud, and so it is limited to the employees and the clients of Fidelity. Then it is called as private cloud. And there are various software stacks which are available. Two of them I just mentioned, which is OpenStack and VMware vCloud. Okay. So with the help of those tools, you can set up your own cloud, but the access is limited to the enterprise. Community cloud, it's a shared infrastructure for specific community. Suppose the university students, they create a cloud, and then it is only available for the students. Or maybe scientists, they set up a cloud, it is only available for the scientist community. Public cloud, it is sold to public, and it's a mega scale infrastructure. Okay, so fine. Okay, so anybody can create an account on this public cloud and start using it. Hybrid cloud, it is composition of two or more clouds. So it could be public private, it could be public public. You can connect them together, and that is called as hybrid cloud. Okay, so composition of any two or more clouds, that is called hybrid cloud. Okay. So these are deployment models. So how you deploy, that will decide this. Okay, so these are the few concepts you should know before we dive into AWS. That is why I have covered those. Yeah, any questions on this slides?
So can we get any examples for the private cloud, community cloud? So public cloud, as we know that Azure and Amazon, Azure and Google Cloud Command are the public cloud. So can we get examples of all remaining the private cloud examples?
Private cloud example means what? There are many
Because
enterprises.
IBM will also come under private cloud, right? Is it?
No, IBM has got a, see, whatever is private cloud will be private to the enterprise. So it will not be published on public, right? Suppose Fidelity, they want to start their, or they want to implement their own cloud. You will not put it on your website that we have a private cloud, right? So there are I'm coming from a, give some example means what exactly you want you have in mind.
So like TCS using their private cloud, right? And the big organizations are using their own.
Right. So everybody, most of the enterprises, they have their private cloud implemented. Okay. So I cannot give you examples like, this is a private cloud because it is private to the enterprise.
Maybe community cloud.
So there are some European scientists. They have their own cloud, which is available to the science community, the scientist community.
Okay.
But you need to be part of that team. So there are many such things. Universities in USA, many universities have their own cloud implemented with OpenStack.
So I have one doubt. Like you told that so AWS is considered the public cloud, right? So they are giving services to public as well as they are giving services to enterprise also. Like is it common or hybrid?
No, you are confusing. Enterprises are using the AWS services, but so as a user of AWS, can you use the services or not? You can, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And now Fidelity is another user who is an enterprise. Can they use the services of AWS? They can.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So AWS is a public cloud. Don't confuse this, the word enterprises. Enterprises can also use public cloud services, but enterprises can also set up their own cloud. Can you set up your own cloud? Answer is yes. In the home, if you implement some 2-3 computers with OpenStack and set up a cloud, it will be your own cloud, right? Right. So don't confuse between enterprises. The word enterprise. Enterprise can be you also.
No. My question is like my question is under hybrid cloud. Okay, so AWS is there, so I can create VPC there. Like I have a small company, so I'm creating one VPC, and under that, my some missions are there, all are there. Okay, so that is like it's like a cloud in a cloud, right? VPC means I have a smart cloud in the AWS, okay, right? So
No, no,
it's giving.
no, 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 no. I think you see VPC don't go by the name virtual private cloud. What VPC, we will be doing a detailed exercise on VPC. So before we do that, I just wanted to clarify, VPC will give you a isolated environment in AWS in terms of network. So it doesn't mean that in VPC you can implement cloud using OpenStack. It is not possible.
Okay.
Okay. So VPC name is little misleading. It is not a virtual private cloud. It is an isolated environment within AWS. What I'm referring to private cloud is completely private. So Fidelity data center is there. Inside that you have implemented your own cloud. So that will need, of course, some set of softwares. So that could be OpenStack or any other stack. There are a lot of software stacks which are available with the help of which you can implement your own cloud. So look and feel will be same, but it is within the enterprise. That is what I'm trying to. That is the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So don't confuse with VPC as one of the private clouds in AWS. It is not possible to do that. Rackspace can give you that kind of.
I got it. It will give a isolated environment in network. So my question is like, I have a small company. Okay. So I taken AWS, like I chosen AWS and I created a my like one part, like they will give a rent for one part, right? Like dedicated host, So they give like that
Okay.
also. So it's providing both, right? It's providing to public, like I got it. They are giving for the
Yeah.
public as well.
So
I
they
got
see
it.
enterprise they are giving it to anybody, to you, me, Fidelity, everybody. Okay, but now suppose Fidelity want to set up, they will not give to everybody, right? It will be to the employees or to clients.
My question is AWS is comes under hybrid or not?
Hybrid? No, no. It is
Hybrid,
under public. Hybrid cloud is what you create. So if you connect your Fidelity data center with AWS, then that arrangement will be called as the hybrid cloud. Okay.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Okay. So suppose I have this thing. I have the Fidelity data center here, and I have the AWS. And if I join this with the help of some connectivity, maybe VPN or direct connect, we'll see that how you can connect it. Then this is called hybrid cloud. This is public. Okay, and this is private because it is within your enterprise. Okay, so this is called hybrid cloud. Okay, I think yeah. Any other doubts? Fine. Okay, so with that background, so we will now dive into AWS cloud. Now here, what I'm going to do, just take this controls off. Let me just open this. Okay. Okay, so here when you go to aws.amazon.com, which is the AWS website, and you can create an account here. So one of the account, what you initially get as a normal user, you can create a free tier account. So what is a free tier account? Free tier account, certain services within certain limits, of course, you can use it free for 1 year. Okay? So I think some of you might have this account already created, but for the training purpose, for this 3 days workshop, I will be giving you access on through my account. I will be creating some users and giving you access for the exercises what we will be doing on AWS. Now, while using this, you need to be careful that there is a lot of billing involved, and whenever you are not using any resources, please terminate them. So this is the
Sorry to interrupt you. Actually,
yeah.
hello. Yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Actually,
Yes.
if you provide also, we are unable to log in from my office laptop.
You are unable to.
Yes, actually they restricted that. We are unable to log in AWS account.
You are using your account or your account, right?
No, I'm not.
So
using
AWS site itself is
yeah.
not accessible.
Yeah, it's not accessible.
It is blocked. Oh, then
Yeah.
we have an issue. Okay.
No,
Because
you mean to
see,
say that aws.amazon.com, is that not working in Fidelity?
Yeah.
But I'm
no.
able to.
Is it because of VPN or is it because of the, like, I don't know, on
No,
open internet?
if you open the, no, if you open that, it's fine. If you trying to sign in, it won't work.
Huh. Oh, it won't work.
Yeah.
That is the issue. Okay.
They restricted
Yeah,
that.
actually, the last time training, they have given some remote
Jump servers,
desktop.
jump servers.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
some remote desktop. Trainer gave some remote desktop where we logged in. We
Right.
AWS
So,
and
right,
Google
that is the
Docs,
kind of
everything.
arrangement we need to do. So because see, this is very much because labs are very important. I want, unless otherwise there is no meaning. So because let me just speak to one of the support guys, and I will come back. So let us do one thing. Since we have covered that cloud fundamentals,
our channel membership. If you would have any issues with our channel membership, you can drop an email to us at contact@devopsschool.com, or you can also unsubscribe from channel membership anytime if you don't want to continue or did not like the video. To get our channel membership, click onto the join button, select the 3D99 plan and grow your skills immensely. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries. We will reply to them at the earliest. Thanks for watching.